You're listening to Packers Talk Network.
PackersTalk.com. Do you want to experience the thrill of a Packers game at Lambeau Field? If so, be sure to get your game tickets from the longtime trusted source in Wisconsin, Ticket King. Visit their locations in Milwaukee and Green Bay, or just go to their website, theticketking.com. Again, that's theticketking.com.
Packers Therapy.
It's Packers Therapy. It's Chris and it's Dave. And we are ready to talk about the third Packer preseason game, a victory. I guess Packers now undefeated in preseason? That's incredible. I mean, that means so much. I mean, they're on the way to the playoffs right now. 21-10, they win over San Francisco. They played at Levi's Field, right? That's what that is, Dave?
In San Francisco?
Santa Clara, I think, isn't it?
Well, I didn't even know that, so I don't know the name of there. I thought it was.
Well, if it's not called Levi's Field,
Candlestick, isn't it Candlestick?
Well, it was Candlestick, but then there was a butcher and a baker who were upset about the naming of that. Well, anyway, it was in the Bay Area, and the Packers won, and there was almost nobody in the stands. Why? Because it's preseason. Well, before we get to the game, I think we want to do a couple of thank yous, because we've been thumping this PayPal thing for a while now. And we want to thank our team physician. Dr. Klaus has come through in a significant manner. And, not only did the guy do my hip surgery last winter, and then he fixed my parathyroid before that, did my annual physical this week, and now he's making a gift at PayPal to help us along our way. Thank you, Dr. Klaus.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Klaus. Do you want me to mention the others too?
No, because they didn't give as much as they should have.
Yes, we've hit a new limit. You've got to be above a certain limit now to get mentioned on the podcast.
No, we had some very generous people that made contributions, and Dave wanted to read off the list of people that were kind enough to support us through PayPal this week.
Along with Dr. Klaus, we had two people give. One is a space in miniature is their handle, but I think that's Mike M. That's attached to that. And John from Ireland also gave, which we appreciate very much. And then Tom Glassell came through. And Tom you have a title for Tom, right?
He is Senior Chief Tom.
That's Senior Chief Tom.
That's
He
right.
also gave, and he was a very generous giver. So that was our gifts for the week. With those four, we are now about 47, what did we say, 47%?
47.2% of the way to our goal. Once we reach the goal, we're going to hit StubHub, and we're going to go to a Packer game, and we're going to do a special podcast for all the people that have been kind enough to contribute over $10 to this little effort that we're doing.
So that's at Packers. What was it? At PackersTherapy@yahoo.com.
Right.
That's our. Yes.
You go to PayPal, but when you do that, though, you're giving to friends. You're not making – this isn't a business corporate thing. You have a choice when you pay through PayPal. You want to select the one that you're giving to friends, because otherwise they ding you there. They take money out of it. And because we are not an official business, you're given to your friends who do a podcast for you every week during the Packer football season.
I missed one. There's a fifth one who's given this week. David Churchill also gave a big thank you to him. We did when you go to the site, one thing to remember is I think there's a couple of options of giving it as a business or as family and friends. Right. And I would consider us as all family at this point, wouldn't you, Chris?
I consider us we're all friends. We're all friends.
At least friends.
Yeah. Some
family, some friends. At least as far as the IRS is concerned, we're all family and friends. So
okay. We're not incorporated. We're not a business.
No. Right. There's nothing productive has come out of this for the last 12 years. So hardly could you call us a business. I agree.
Exactly.
I agree.
Well, anyway, thank you to everybody that's been kind enough to give, including Prime Minister Churchill. That was great that you came back from the grave to support us, and nice work in World War II, Prime Minister. We thank you for that as well. Dave, do we know if the people who've been giving from Europe, John from Ireland, and of course Dr. Klaus in Norway. Are those euros or were those dollars?
They are in dollars.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure I can confirm that, but I believe they have done the conversion. Yeah, I don't see the euro sign in front of anything. So, yeah, those are in dollars.
Okay, all right. Well, we'll spend it. You send it to us, and we'll spend it, we promise.
Yeah.
Packer football. Let's talk about that for a second. First question I have for you, Dave. We saw Aaron Rodgers playing first quarter. I thought some people were saying he looked rusty. I guess there was some false starts. A lot of it was he was, doing all that jumping around the line. And I think it made it feel more disjointed. But then Joe Callahan comes in, and Joe Callahan looked pretty darn good. I mean, he made some terrific throws while on the run. And I'm thinking, as I'm watching this game and talking to number one son who was watching the game with me, is this guy been impressive enough and good enough in the preseason? And given the fact that their backup, Brent Huntley, is injured right now, has Joe Callahan played his way onto the final 53? What do you think?
Well, we saw a mock list of the final 53, and that list did not have him on the roster, and it probably had him on the practice squad. But I mean, if he keeps playing the way he does, someone's going to pick him up. There's just not that many good quarterbacks in the league, and I can't tell from the TV that he's Doug Flutie short. They were saying that he was particularly short. I don't know if they listed.
They said he's 6'1".
Yeah, that's not short, is it?
Well, no, I guess now you want to be at least 6'2" to be an NFL quarterback. But, there are guys who are shorter, 6 feet tall, Russell Wilson and Drew Brees.
Right.
It's not the prototypical size for a quarterback. And this guy played at Division III last year, too. You wonder if this is a mirage, but this is, the third game in a row that he has acquitted himself pretty well. And because you have your backup, Brent Huntley is injured right now. You don't know if he's going to be ready for that first game. Do you want to go into the first game, with a questionable number 2 quarterback? I mean, and also, too, Callahan, maybe if he's this good now, maybe he could be developed into a serviceable backup if you trade away Brent Huntley once he's healthy. I don't know. To me, it's a real intriguing question, Dave, whether or not, they make a decision to put him on the final 53 or take a chance that he won't be able to be brought back to the practice squad because someone else has picked him up.
Yeah, I was just really impressed by his play. He made a couple of very good throws. The touchdown to Aberderis was very impressive. It was on the move, and it was kind of only in a spot where he could catch it. He threw one to, who's the rookie receiver? Geronimo Allison.
Geronimo Allison, not Allison Geronimo.
Geronimo Allison,
right.
Which I thought was it was a long throw, and it was on target and gave his guy a chance. But, he also he hasn't made too many just dumb passes that you think, oh, that one got away from him, or that looked like a lame duck. I mean, you see some of these second, third-string guys go out there and just look like they don't know what they're doing. They're not in tune with the offense. He's definitely got the offense down. So I think at a minimum, I don't think they're going to go out and get somebody else. So I think if Huntley is hurt, I think to keep Callahan, and whether he stays on the roster all year is a question. Say Huntley comes back as healthy and they need a spot because they're loaded in some other spots. I'm sure they would want to keep it open. If they could throw him on the practice squad and maybe have an extra tight end or a receiver, they might like to do that. But I think if Huntley is not able to back Rodgers up in that first game, I don't think there's anyone else coming to Green Bay. I think Callahan is the guy. He was really, really impressive.
Well, the thing is, if you bring in a veteran, and some people have called for, bringing in an experienced guy, somebody that gets cut. I mean, that's somebody, unless it's Matt Flynn, that's somebody that doesn't know the Packer offense. And so
the offense, that's right.
Do you want to go into that first game with a backup that really doesn't know what he's doing? I mean, at that point, you'd probably be better off in having Callahan, even though maybe he's, not as experienced or talented. He does have the advantage of having worked with these guys for a period of time and does know the offense. One thing I should mention also, too, you didn't mention this, Dave. He made a hell of a throw to Adams. That should have been a touchdown. Rolling to his left, throwing back across the middle of the field, went right through Adams' hands. I thought that was an incredible throw.
Oh, yeah, that's right. He had one to Adams that I think I called back that ran down the field for a good yardage. Was that, or maybe that was Rodgers that was playing? I think
that may have been Rodgers, yeah.
Yeah. You know what is interesting, the comparison between Callahan and Rodgers, you mentioned this, is that when Rodgers gets the line of scrimmage, he jumps around, he moves forward, everyone's got to kind of turn and listen to what he's saying, and they go back. I have never heard a single player say anything but, he runs the offense, he is our leader in the huddle, we have faith in Rodgers, but I wonder if they just get up to that line of scrimmage and it's like, man, every time you come up here, it's got to be a fake or a change or something. And that it disrupts the offense somewhat, because I noticed with Callahan, when he gets up, he gets the call. That's the call he runs.
Right,
There's
exactly.
no deciding, right? He's not. I thought they were saying on one show that he basically says like, yes, sir,
That's
after
right.
every call that comes in. That's how you feel he probably acts. But at the same time, I was trying to think, no, but that's not what I want. I want someone that's smart enough and has the flexibility to go up to the line of scrimmage. And if it's a screen and you could tell they're loaded to that side or they're only rushing two, or that you can kind of audible out of it, I think I want that. That's been good for Peyton Manning, and Rodgers certainly does it, and very experienced quarterbacks do that, and it gives them an edge and is a difference maker and across the league. But it makes the offense doesn't look like it runs as smooth when there's always this kind of herky-jerky last-minute calls and delay a game, stops the rhythm, all that kind of stuff. Do you think – I still think the way they do it now, I'd rather have Rodgers have control. But do you think there's anything to that could be disruptive?
I was thinking the same thing during the game. Watching it, and I know that in the long run there's an advantage to being able to, change the play and move guys around. But it does have that herky-jerky feel that you mentioned. It doesn't seem smooth. I suppose what matters is the outcome. I mean, do they gain yardage? Do they get a first down? Do they put it in the end zone? But it just feels disjointed the way the center is looking through his legs, the offensive line looking back. Then they're changing their calls.
Right. The receiver at the end is looking at the other receiver saying, what did he say?
Yeah.
And then you can kind of tell, like, well, he's not in the play. I just wonder if some of that is disruptive.
Well, and this is where I will, become a fan and show my ignorance is, what appears to me to be a deficit, in fact, may be for them, poetry, because it, results in them having the kind of matchups they want to have. And I guess the bottom line is, do they get the ball in the end zone? And, they have been more successful, not last year so much, but in past years, they've been very successful doing it this way. It just seems out of kilter. Now, this is also preseason too, so we really can't take anything meaningful from this. But it just doesn't feel right, and that's a real fan kind of observation. Maybe this is exactly the feel that they want.
Yeah. Well, one thing I took away from the offense that I'm really excited about is I think Jared Cook is going to make a difference for this offense this year. I think the fact that you have someone who could block or catch, he broke a tackle, which I had to rewind because I thought a tight end breaking a tackle.
Impossible.
I haven't seen that in a Green Bay uniform for some time. Also, just being able to drop safeties back and, stopped crossing routes down the field for your wide receivers where he can go 5 to 8 yards out, catch a ball, and maybe make some yards after the catch with that as well. That makes them multifaceted that they haven't had in some time. I know they say he drops the ball had dropped the ball quite a bit. He looks like he is athletic and can catch the ball and sure-handed to me. So I have not seen him play. He played for lousy teams before. I think he looks like the best tight end that we've had in some time, and I hope Rodgers uses him a lot on third down.
I think Rodgers is going to. I mean, third down and otherwise, he was looking for him. Now, maybe that was by design also, but he seemed to be looking for him during the time the two of them were on the field together. And he does seem to be a different kind of tight end than they've had, since Michael Finley retired. So that's encouraging. That's good to see. But in the back of my mind is what you were saying. Every place he's been, they say he, looks the part, looks like Tarzan, but he's a tendency to play like Jane. He drops the ball, and I think he also might have some attention issues, maybe. I find that kind of hard to believe in the NFL, but they seem to say that he does have deficits, which is why he wasn't really in high demand as a free agent. But I like his physical stuff. What I've seen in the preseason, I'm really interested to see how that translates to the real games.
Yeah, I think the tight end spot is going to be much more of a strength this year. Rodgers is thinner. I don't know if he had any catches. Did he have any catches? He had one for 8 yards. But he might be a decent backup guy.
He looks like a different player. I mean, what is it? Was he lost 15, 20 pounds? I mean, he looks just completely different than the hulking mass they had the year before.
Yeah, he's a big guy before, so maybe he can play a little better. But I don't know if Richard Rodgers is ever going to be a number one tight end that in a great offense. But as a 2, he's still big enough where he can block. And if they run a lot of 2 tight end type sets, and it feels like they're doing that, that just creates more flexibility in that offense. So I think the tight end spot is a real shining example of the offense this year. Who is going to be the third, because I'm guessing they will take a third, is interesting. Justin Perillo, every time he gets the ball near him, he catches it. He seems like he would be he's bigger than Bachman is, and so I wonder from a blocking tight end that maybe they keep him. Do you think they keep 3 tight ends, and who do you think they're going to take?
Well, I think the question for me is, do they keep 4 tight ends?
I
think it's for sure they'll keep 3, but I don't know how they'll go between Bachman and Perillo. As you mentioned, I think Perillo catches everything. I mean, we saw that when we were at the Lions-Packers game last year. If you can, get the ball in his catch radius, he's gonna catch it. But the thing is, he's not, very nifty in the open field. He's more of that, big tight end guy. I guess even as his size, he's not a great blocker though. But when he does get open, he's going to catch the ball. Bachman, I don't think is as refined at this point, but they think that he has a little bit of that, Jermichael Finley kind of profile that they want. He's got a greater potential, greater upside to be a difference maker. So I'm not really sure which way they're going to go. I hope they don't keep 4. I always thought that was kind of overkill because I don't know that either one of those guys have to have special teamers. Sometimes tight ends, being built kind of like linebackers, they're oftentimes special teamers. But I'm not sure that either one of those guys are really, stud, standout guys on teams. So that I don't think is going to be a difference, and neither one's a great blocker. So while Perillo catches everything, I'm not sure that his potential for future growth is as great as Bachman's.
That's interesting because I thought Perillo looks the part of a blocking tight end.
Right.
He seems more solid, and I thought with Ripkowski getting hurt before the game, they're not going to carry another running back that's more of that blocker, that William Henderson kind of guy. So could one of the tight ends play that role? And they had a couple times they had Cook line up as a fullback and come in and block. And so I thought maybe they'll keep an extra tight end if Ripkowski is hurt. I think they want a fullback, right? And they only have really one in camp. I don't know if any of the other ones would really qualify as a fullback type.
Yeah, they've got that other guy who's a converted, maybe defensive lineman. I think he was converted. I want to think of his name here. Seisman.
Oh, yes, you're right. There is a guy in camp.
Yeah, he's a big guy, but at best, I think he's a special team guy. I mean, this seems like it's they'll keep a fullback, and that's Ripkowski, although he did not play against San Francisco. He's injured apparently, but he seems to be the guy that they're going to keep in that role.
Oh well, if they keep him, then I guess they have a fullback backup. Yeah. Lacy looked good to me again. I think we're going to get a heavy dose of Eddie Lacy this year, as long as he can.
A heavy?
Really?
Oh
boy! Pardon the pun.
He's just big.
Yeah,
but
he's big.
He ran well in the open field. Got pulled down by his hair, which didn't look too comfortable.
No.
The question becomes with Eddie Lacy. Is he's only playing now? First quarter and a half. Is he going to be that effective and that much of a difference maker in the third and fourth quarter? He's looking pretty frisky at the beginning of games, but is that going to last given the guy's size?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think the way they could play, though, is you get a heavy dose of him early and then a lot of passing at the end. And if you've got to grind teams toward the end, Starks can serve that role, and they're going to have somebody play as a third down back, whether it's Crockett or this guy Burks came through with a really nice touchdown run. I mean, there's very few backs can kind of run to daylight and cut across the grain like that. I thought that was very impressive. So maybe they'll take him.
It was impressive, but he was playing late in the game against guys who are going to be driving the FedEx truck in a few weeks. I don't know what to make of that, and that's why I kind of give the nod to Crockett at this point. But Dave, to me, the question is, are they going to keep a third running back who doesn't necessarily, play a lot on special teams? It seems, maybe they'll just go with Lacey and Starks, and then Ripkowski again to save a roster spot, so they can. We haven't talked about the defense yet, but there may be an extra defensive back that they want to keep because apparently they've got some good ones that are have a high upside.
Well, I wonder if they use Cobb as a running back once in a while, so I wonder if they're going to do that this year, or they're going to not expose him
or Montgomery
in that running back. Yeah, Montgomery can play that. So that's another part that I think is really interesting is how many wide receivers do you keep? Because all this is related. You gotta. I can see. Another fullback. I was just looking at this mock 53 that you sent over. They only have Ripkowski as their only fullback. If you had a backup fullback and cut one of your promising wide receivers, that probably would be a shame. I mean, this still is a passing league. And right now, this list has 6 wide receivers on the team: Jordy Nelson, Randall Cobb, Adams, Montgomery, Abbrederis, and Trevor Davis. That's your 6. I think there are 2 guys that are big question marks, and that's Janis, one from a receiver and for special teams. I mean, he's definitely a stud on special teams. And then this guy coming on, Geronimo Allison. I mean, this guy Geronimo, he is a rookie, right? He's not a camp guy that's been around different camps, right? This is a true rookie. I guess I can look that up.
Yeah, I'm not sure about that. I don't think he's made anybody's team before. Did they have him last year in practice squad?
They have him as rookie from Illinois.
All right. Okay.
So he, but if just by what I've seen in the first 3 games of who looks the type and who looks really impressive, you have to say Allison. If you didn't know any of their names, I think you would say Allison would be one of your top guys. He is tall. Yep. He can catch the ball. I mean, he just looks the part, and he made a really good catch in kind of contended for that ball that Callahan threw him. Mm-hmm. Well, I don't know. What's his upside? Will he survive on a practice squad if they want to keep him? Or do you want to keep, again, I think you don't want to cut Montgomery or Adams. Maybe you trade someone like Adams if you want to fill out your roster and keep a guy like that. But wouldn't you keep 7 receivers if you've got high upside and then only carry, 4 running backs or 3 running backs?
Well, I might do that. At this point, I think Jeff Janis is headed for the IR.
Okay.
Yeah, and so like you take him out of the mix, but that still leaves you 6. Nelson, Cobb, Adams, Montgomery, Abbrederis, and Davis. But if you add Allison to that mix, then what do? You got to keep all of those guys. I mean, Davis isn't going to slip through waiver wires and go to the practice squad. That's not going to happen. I think any of those guys would. Oh, by the way, I should give credit where credit's due. The list that we're talking about, the most recent mock that I saw out there, the mock 53, was from a source called Packers Notes. Packer Notes, I think it is actually.
No, it's Packers with an
S.
Packers Notes.
Packers Notes.
Both plural.
Yeah. And anyway, it's a website. The guy's been around for a long time. He goes to the training camp. He's got observations. He's got a Twitter account. I do want to give him credit because I look at a lot of stuff, and this is the most recent 53 that I saw, and so that's why we're using it to make our comments. It is a good site, though. I recommend it for Packers fans. Packers Notes, I believe it's packersnotes.com, and also you can follow them on Twitter as well. Anyway, getting back to that wide receiver situation, I don't know, though, if you can really keep 7. I think maybe you try to sneak Allison through to the practice squad, because the other 6 guys in front of him are all guys that you, at this point, probably want to keep unless Adams would be tradable. But, there aren't a lot of trades like that. Teams seem to think that I'll just wait until he gets cut. Why should I give you something when I can just pick him up without having to give up anything?
Well, this would be the situation. You have somewhat of a known guy, a guy that is a little bit tainted here, but has, I think, still some upside.
Sure,
and
yeah.
say someone else has, a defensive line, they're really stacked defensive line, and someone that they're just sort of done with, and we kind of trade our, abundance of talent in one area for somebody else's. I could see a decent trade happening there, and we just don't know. But they may look at Adams and like a Geronimo and say, actually Allison, and say, these guys are basically the same right now, and Allison has better upside. Look, I want to keep him. What can we get for Adams? Because I don't know. I don't think that's going to happen. I think what's more likely if they really like Allison is they try to keep. Some other position has less, and I don't know where you would have that take place on offense. I mean, looking at this, there's just not a lot of spots. But I wonder, Jordy Nelson is not 100%. You don't know where he's at. They obviously know better than we do. He might come back and be 95% of his old self and say, all right, that's fine. You don't need to take a chance. But if Nelson comes out and he's 80%, and he's just a guy, then I don't know. Maybe you want to carry another guy in case he gets hurt again or he just isn't as effective.
Well, I think that's definitely a concern, because I just saw this afternoon that Nelson's not expected to play in the last preseason game against Kansas City. So the first time we're going to see him is probably in the regular season opener on September 11th at Jacksonville. I don't have a good feel of what we're going to see. I mean, this is also a guy in his 30s. Hasn't played, since 2014. It's an enormous question mark, and until you really understand that, it's hard to know how much depth you want to be carrying at wide receiver. There's just a lot of question marks. And of course, they say if you're debating about, do you keep 6 or 7 wide receivers, your team is probably in pretty good shape. Maybe a better question is, do they keep 9 offensive linemen? That's something that the guys at Packers Notes think they'll do at this point, at least, is carry 9. And of course, you've got your 5 starters: Bulaga, Bakhtiari, Sitton, Lang, and Treader. But then you've got the 4 backups, and you're probably looking at, well, they have Don Barclay, Lane Taylor, Spriggs, and Murphy. I'm not sure they're going to keep 4. Barclay probably, because he's your backup center now. That the last year starters hurt. Pup list, right? I think still.
Is he?
Yeah.
Corey Linsley.
Yeah, I think he's still pup list. So you got to carry Don Barclay as a backup center. Lane Taylor, they signed him, to a deal in the off season. I think he got like a $800,000 signing bonus.
Oh, did he?
Yeah. And Spriggs is a high draft pick, so you probably keep him. But the question to me is Kyle Murphy. I know he's a draft choice, but boy, he looked terrible. He was getting, beat, as they say, pillar to post out there. He didn't look game ready. He didn't look like the kind of guy I would want to see on the field at any point. Now, this was by far his worst preseason game. He's looked better than that. So I think the next game is going to determine a lot, whether or not they hang on to him, or if he, maybe try to get him through to the practice squad. But as a draft choice, I'm not sure that, you can count on him slipping through waivers. It's going to be a tough call, but boy, he sure did not look ready to play against San Francisco.
I didn't hear that about the San Francisco. I had heard that he played better against Oakland.
Right.
He had a decent game.
Right.
So
he looked terrible against the Niners, though.
Oh, I guess I didn't hear about that. I wonder if you carry an extra lineman. There's a lot of tread on the tires with some of these guys. Bulaga seems like he's one knee injury away. Sitton's back. T.J. Lang has hurt a lot. Yeah. J.C. Treader, he's flexible to play from center to tackle. So, a guy like that stays on the team.
Sure.
From a backup.
And he'll be the starting center, too. I mean,
yeah, that's right.
If somebody gets hurt at tackle, he probably goes outside, and then you have Don Barclay as your center, probably.
Yeah, that's probably right. Yeah. they're going to make some tough choices. I just see some of these younger guys. We'll talk about defense because there's a bunch of young guys over there that are maybe even harder decisions. But I think the offense looked, from a starter perspective, looked pretty good. That addition of a tight end, you had Jordy Nelson back. McCarthy's calling the plays. I think you've had a chance to reset where they've never had to really kind of maybe they just took some things for granted. But after last year, I don't think there's anything they can take for granted. I think their offense is going to be pretty darn good. Lacey, we talked about him. I think he's going to have a good year. I wish they had another back besides Starks that we could get more excited about. Crockett and Burks and some of these other guys. I mean, I think they're guys that I don't know if they're anything special. I wish they would have kind of an exciting, quick, third down back that we could kind of get excited about. Because, I think Lacey, he's not going to play. He'll get 60% of the carries probably during a game and hopefully during the season if he doesn't get hurt. Probably not 70 or 75. You're going to rely a lot on Starks. And Starks is fine. But our offense will revolve around the passing game. But I wish we had a third guy.
Yeah, that is something that is kind of missing that some teams have, and they use it to great effect. It's not really what the Packers do, though. I mean, I think they would very much like to have a guy that can, play all 3 downs, all 4 downs at running back, and then you mix in the other guy who's also a 3 or 4 down guy. This isn't like when Mike Sherman had Tony Fisher. Is that who I'm thinking about?
Yeah, that kind of a guy.
Yeah, right.
Exactly.
Who was just nails on third down. I don't think that's part of the offensive philosophy that McCarthy has, at least in recent years, at least.
Well, you say that, but I think the tight end has definitely part of his philosophy,
sure.
right?
Yeah,
he was a tight end, but they haven't gotten tight ends that have been decent for a long time. So I don't quite know if his philosophy and the personnel decisions always match up. So I wonder if they had a guy, they'd start to use him. Now, if they have enough receivers, a third down back that would be a great third down back if they want to use him that way would be Cobb. But I don't know if you want him back blocking. But in terms of, up and out, a quick 2-3 yard toss and let him make moves, Cobb could serve that role very well. And then you've got other receivers that could take over in other spots. So I think bottom line is I think this offense is going to be pretty good. You have any concerns that this is going to start slow?
Yeah, I think it's going to start slow, but for a couple of reasons. One, I think that Jacksonville is going to be a lot better than people think. I mean, they've made improvements in the off season. I don't know that they're necessarily going to be a world beater, but I think they're going to be a much improved team. And this is their opener. They're at home. I think there's a lot of factors that are going to make this a tougher game than a lot of Packer fans think. On top of that, I think Aaron Rodgers is now done for the preseason. I don't think we're going to see him against Kansas City, and that's all he's done. And I think he looked okay, but not quite season ready, in my opinion, in this game against San Francisco. Then you have the Jordy Nelson question. I mean, how much is he going to play? How much can he play, given that he hasn't, played for real in a real long time, and the fact that he's on the other side of 30 years old too. I have no idea where we're going to get there. You have a new tight end. I think Jared Cook is going to be good for them, but out of the blocks, I think it's going to take the Packers several games, two games, 3 games to kind of find their rhythm, which isn't a bad thing necessarily, because it's more important how you're playing in the second half of the season than you play in the first half of the season. So I think they are going to stumble a bit, largely because they have taken a very conservative attitude in the preseason. And I don't think that's necessarily the wrong thing. It's just probably going to make them be a little slower starting. I also think that they could try some things that they wanted to do last year but weren't really able to, like having both Montgomery and Cobb in the backfield at the same time.
Yeah, they did that early, didn't they, last year?
I think they did, but Montgomery wasn't – he only played, I want to say, 4 games before he really got hurt and was not really a factor.
Yeah, it was,
but I think we're going to see that. We're going to see more of that, and to me that's really exciting. I think this is probably something that they haven't shown in the preseason that we're going to see in the regular season. But because it's relatively new, they didn't really get a chance to fully implement it last year. I think it'll take them a little time to figure out how things like that work. I expect them to be a little slow out of the gate, finding themselves on offense. But once they do, barring a string of catastrophic injuries, I think that they're going to be, returning again to a top 5, top 7 kind of offense.
Well, I'm going to disagree with you a little bit. I think they come out against Jacksonville and look strong right from the start.
Right.
I think the offensive line and Rodgers, the history with that is long enough that they will be ready to go. And I just think Jared Cook is going to surprise in the upside. Nelson is just no way for any of us to know what Nelson is going to be. He's a wild card. I wonder if he'll even start. I wonder if he will.
That's a good question.
How many plays he'll play in that first game? But I just see. I don't know. I'd be surprised if it's 3 and out right away. I don't know if they'll score a touchdown on their first drive. But I feel like they're going to come out and score 28 points in that game. Although the other thing I don't know is I don't know anything about Jacksonville's defense. I just know that they have not been a good team for a long time, and I never hardly ever follow them because they're never in the conversation. People like yourself keep saying that they're better, but they said about Oakland and other teams, and I guess they're not saying that about San Francisco. Isn't that maybe that's something we can talk about and we talk about after the break? One thing that just really struck me was the decline of the San Francisco 49ers from being a good team not that long ago. But
let's take a break and then talk about that. Let's pick that up when we come back. And as we always do here on Packers Therapy, we take a little break in the middle of the podcast to kind of let our old friend Pamela get caught up and make sure that everything is properly calibrated so we don't get out of sync here too badly, at least. But you don't need to know about that. What you do need to know about is PayPal. Yes, PayPal. It's PackersTherapy@yahoo.com. If you like the podcast, if it's worth $10 to you, please go over to PayPal. Choose the friends and family option, not the business option. We would greatly appreciate that. And everyone who gives money not only gets recognized on the podcast, but we're going to do a special podcast just for our friends who've been good enough to give us a little money so that we can hit up the internet and get ourselves some tickets and go to a Packer game this year. All right. This is Packers Therapy with Chris and Dave. We'll be right back just in a second. Chris and Dave back with more Packers Therapy. And as promised, Dave, let's pick it up again, talking about the sudden decline, the crash and burn of the San Francisco 49ers. A couple of years ago, they were in the Super Bowl, and they had a tremendous defense. Colin Kaepernick was a prototype of what the next generation NFL quarterback was going to be like. And then all of a sudden he wasn't, and San Francisco wasn't, and they had a rash of injuries and retirements on defense. And now, people...
Coach is gone.
Right. They went through a couple of coaches, right?
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. So now they have Chip Kelly, who's in his first season there. They are, have a quarterback. They're trying to sort through who they're going to have at quarterback. Kaepernick is still there and not standing for the national anthem, apparently. They have Christian Ponder there. I mean, it's just they're in a state of flux, and a lot of people think that they're going to be toward the bottom of the league when it's all said and done.
Yeah, and the thing that strikes me is that they were so good, and they were young and good.
Yeah.
New quarterback who had high upside. I thought their defense wasn't super old. Their coach had a long history of winning in college and comes to the pros and looks pretty good. His brother has been really successful in Baltimore. I thought this is going to be a tough team to beat for some time, and man, has they fell. And it did make me appreciate a bit of what the Packers are doing with Ted Thompson. I thought they brought up an interesting point, which is related to this. But, the Packers are – well, one thing is the Packers have Aaron Rodgers and not Colin Kaepernick, which, as it turns out, that Colin may not as good as maybe he was back in that season. I don't know if that's him or the offense or the coaching or whatever it is, but given the same coaches that they had Aaron Rodgers, I wonder if they would still be together or be more successful. But, they don't reach. They draft really well. They seem to replenish. They don't go out. I wish they would do a little bit more in free agency, but maybe that would cause problems like San Francisco's got. I don't know. But, just looking at the Packers, I expect 11, 12 wins again, and I expected it back when the San Francisco 49ers were good. I thought 11, 12 wins then, and before San Francisco was good, I thought the Packers would win 11, 12 wins. So their stability is really striking when I think of it compared to what's happened in San Fran. I couldn't see it happen to a better organization, to see them be really crappy. Don't really care for them that much. I certainly never liked Harbaugh that much at all.
No.
And I do like the fact that although I don't live there anymore, but it seems like we're a culture and a community that doesn't want jerks like Harbaugh coaching our team. That from the board of directors on down, that they want quality people. And I can say what I want about Ted. It seems like he's puts together a quality organization. I was just kind of struck by the difference in how quickly that team has declined.
Yeah, and it's as you mentioned, it couldn't happen to a better franchise. When Harbaugh was there, I think they did kind of take on the personality of that coach, and it was a very volatile situation. And I guess in retrospect, you can say it went kind of like you would have expected it to go with that sort of personality as coach, and the kind of guys that they had on defense. They were, very, I think, emotional players, and again, adding kind of that volatility to the situation. Mix that in with the coach, and apparently, Kaepernick too apparently is, not the easiest of all personalities to deal with, and so they're kind of starting over again. And Chip Kelly is a proven winner at the college level. He's innovative in lots of ways. He's brought some different things to the NFL. I think their outlook probably isn't great for this year, but I wouldn't count them out in succeeding years. Just because of the nature of Chip Kelly, he does tend to have these tremendously potent offenses that can bludgeon other teams with the amount of points they put up. So it will be interesting to see what happens out there. But for right now, this isn't the Niners team that we became accustomed to, just 3, 4, 5 years ago.
No, I was just checking to see. We don't play them. No, we don't play them this season. I think they don't look very good. I think they're going to go with Blaine Gabbert.
Yeah, that's right.
I think they actually, if Colin Kaepernick could throw and had a decent head on his shoulders, that offense probably is pretty good for him. But I thought our defense, a couple of times where Colin Kaepernick, I thought there was one play in particular where it was like third and it was a little bit longer, 12 or something, and he started to scramble. And I thought, boy, I've seen this before where he scrambles and it's a first down. And Quentin Rollins came out of nowhere and tackled him soundly for short of the first down. And I thought, if it was the 2000 and what was it when they lost to the 49ers twice in the playoffs, but 2013, 2012 Packers,
yeah, right,
somewhere in there,
right.
Like they would have missed the tackle. He would have got a first down, and the drive goes on. But this year's defense has a lot of talent. They're really young. They're a lot faster than they were then. And one thing I've noticed, I don't know if you've heard others talk about it. It feels like their tackling is really sound. Like they're not covering everyone. The guys are making catches, but it seems like once they make the catch, the tackling is very good. And I wonder if that's going to carry through, or if that's just the way it's been so far, and you'll be exposed more during the season. But as high as I'm on the offense, I think I'm just as high on this team on the defense based on how they played.
That's the same way I feel too. The Packer defense, I think, is greatly improved, and maybe it's a back to front kind of improvement. They are so deep at defensive back. I mean, my goodness, and you wonder how many of these guys they're going to keep. It's almost an embarrassment of riches. Looking again at that mock 53 that Packers Notes put out yesterday. Sam Shields, that's a given. I think he'll be there. And, of course, Rollins and Randall, naturally. Clinton Dix, of course. Burnett, yes, of course. And then
Micah Hyde.
And then it gets interesting. Yeah, Micah Hyde. I think that's a pretty much.
That's a given.
You can pretty much count on that.
Yeah.
But what about Ladarius Gunter, or as we like to say on the podcast, Gunter? He's okay. He's a little slow, but he's got long arms. He played limited appearances last season. He was, I guess, okay, but he's not got a lot of that makeup speed. But yet, I guess he's pretty assignment sure. Probably makes the team. I thought Chris Banjo would make the team, but he kind of tweaked his shoulder during the game, and you wonder if they want to keep an injured Chris Banjo, who is a stalwart on special teams.
Right. And he's the guy when he gets to the end zone, when they kick it out of the end zone, he's the one who makes the crowd cheer.
Yeah.
You notice that? He's the one. He's like I like Chris Banjo a lot.
Well, he's plucky. He's plucky, right?
He's plucky.
Yeah,
Chris
that's
Banjo,
right.
Yes. Yeah.
So, but kidding aside, he has turned out to be a solid back of the roster kind of player. He's good on special teams, can play from scrimmage if you need him to. But now he's hurt, and when you're our back of the roster, I'm not sure. Does that wind up on IR? I'm not sure. They really like Kentrell Bryce. Now, the little bit that I've seen of him, he looks the part. He looks, active and aggressive. I like him out there. Everything you read about him, the guy seems like he's someone who you want to keep because if you don't, somebody else is going to grab him if you put him on waivers. So they keep him. But then it gets really tough. Josh Hawkins, who has flashed in the preseason, and if people, read the daily dispatches from camp, another name that comes up a lot. And then there's this Marwin Evans, who had an interception during the game. I think he picked off Christian Ponder.
And they said he runs a 4.4 40.
Yeah, he's very, very quick, and he's a Wisconsin guy. He grew up in southeastern Wisconsin. I think he's an Oak Creek guy. But the deal on him is that his Wonderlic score was 6, and according to McGinn, I listened to the McGinn podcast this week. The way McGinn explained it was that Evans didn't know how important it was. They gave him the test after a workout, and he wasn't into it, and he didn't put his best foot forward just because he didn't try hard. He didn't know how important it was. Nobody apparently told him that this is one of the factors that teams look at. So he wound up being undrafted because a safety scoring a 6 is bad. I guess that's one of the positions where they need a higher Wonderlic, at least higher than 6. I think they're looking for something, in double digits. Now, I don't know that that's necessarily the kiss of death because wasn't Nick Collins, wasn't his Wonderlic in the low teens, something like that? But he obviously worked out real well. So if Evans is as good as everyone says he is, and that he perhaps just didn't give his best on the Wonderlic for whatever reason, maybe he's another guy that you don't want to let slip through because he has these natural talents. And apparently, even though it's just Christian Ponder, the guy made a pick. So he's shown something, and apparently he's been doing the same thing in camp. Is this a position, Dave, where you want to keep 11? Do you want, unless you put Banjo on injured reserve, but do you really want to do that when he recovers and he's such an important member of the special teams?
Yeah, he's very good in special teams. Right, great in coverage.
If you keep 11 DBs, though, that means you got to take less someplace else.
Well, it's a passing league.
It is.
And, according to this, they have 5 defensive linemen and 10 defensive backs. So, they play a lot of nickel, a lot of dime. Someone who has a lot of potential is going to be either on the practice squad or be on someone else's team. And it could be that we kick ourselves that we let Josh Hawkins go.
Exactly. Oh, Josh Hawkins, yeah.
We had him, and we let him go. But, as we sit here today, there's at least 5 or 6 you just know. I guess there are probably 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There are at least 6 that are just no-brainers. Micah Hyde, maybe he's someone that you say, look, he is a football player. He's smart. He can be a punt returner. He had a great interception against Cleveland.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
He's a solid guy. But Now, you know how good he's going to be. He's been with the team for a while. I think you want a lot of Michael Hydes because it seems like he may make 5 plays this season that you remember, but there'll be 5 really important plays in the fourth quarter kind of thing. Like, he's that kind of guy. Yeah. But these other ones, they might be really, really good and be better than Michael Hyde if you give them a chance. It's obviously we can't tell because we're watching 3 preseason games when they're playing all the time. They have coaches who are practicing with them, so they'll know what the best route to go is. I don't know, 11. I suppose you keep 11 when you think we're going to play a lot of dime, a lot of nickel, and just hope that you can kind of deal with the run if you play a really good running team. But it certainly seems from everyone's analysis that the back end of this defense is very, very talented, and it does. It shows in these games. Every pass seems to be contended, tipped. There's interceptions. If it's caught, they're being tackled kind of right at the spot. Their third down percentage or allowing third downs has been really, really good. I think they said San Francisco, what did we say? They scored 31 points on Denver last week?
Right.
But they were.
Season's hard to know what that means.
I know.
But Denver's a good defense. I don't know how well they did against the first team defense there, but yeah.
But I think they were. I don't have the stats, but it was something like 13% on. It was like 2 out of 11 on third downs or something. If we had any stats whatsoever, we'd know that. But and we just don't. Oh, maybe I'll be able to pull this up here. Third down efficiency. I found it. San Francisco was 2 for 11.
Yeah, and that's not very good.
No, and that's only 11. Packers were 7 for 20. That doesn't look very good either. But
I would take that any day over 2 of 11. You said, yeah.
Yeah, that means you didn't have many, and you didn't convert on only 2.
Right, exactly.
You'll win a lot of games if you do that. I think part of that is you're not going to stop teams all the time on every play, but if you can tackle them as the ball is caught and get to third downs, that's what this back end seems to be doing for this team. So the back end of the defense looks very good. The front end of this defense worries me.
Yeah, a lot.
Kenny Clark now was hurt.
Yeah, he didn't even make the trip to San Francisco with a back problem. And that leaves you with Mike Daniels, good player. Yep. LaTroy Guion,
who got hurt too.
Right. He's very effective when it comes to handguns and pot.
Yes.
So he's got that going for him, which is good. Yeah. Christian Ringo, I was unaware that Ringo was a Christian, but okay, we'll take that. And Dean Lowry. I mean, there's not a lot of guys there that you look at and say, aha. I mean, Lowry looks like just a guy. Kenny Clark is only 20 years old. I mean, he's a young guy, and now with an injury. Ringo was a draft choice last year. He got a sack in the San Francisco game, but as I recall, that was a sack because others put a lot of pressure on, and he was there to kind of, just clean up the mess. There's a lot of questions. I saw somebody comment that, would Ted Thompson call B.J. Raji and say, hey, big fella, how's that family situation going?
Yeah, right.
But I don't think that's something that Ted doesn't do. But, boy, they are really going to miss B.J. Raji because they are thin at defensive line.
Well, Mike Pinnell will come back eventually.
Right, yes. But that probably means then that, I don't know, Christian Ringo or, they try to get him through the practice squad then. But that's 4 games, though. I mean, a quarter of the season you're going to be without Mike Pinnell. So, again, that's another reason why I wonder about, these first, 4 games. How will the Packers come out? And not that defensive line is that critical because their base defense is really nickel, right? And so you need basically 2 down linemen for that.
Right, and one's going to be Mike Daniels.
Exactly, yeah. And, so maybe this isn't really a huge issue. Maybe it's more important what the linebacker situation's like. And Packers Notes is speculating in their rendering 11. It's hard to argue with that, because Matthews, Perry, Peppers, Dayton Jones obviously is going to have to play. It gets more interesting when you start talking about, okay, what about some of these guys in the middle? Jake Ryan hasn't played. He's been hurt. Joe Thomas is injured now again. Sam Barrington's coming off an injury. Carl Bradford, I think, is on the bubble. Packers News thinks he'll make the team. He's been playing a lot better, and I'm really pulling for this guy because, he looks now like I hoped he would have looked, coming out of college. I think Blake Martinez is going to make the team.
And probably start.
Probably. I mean, he's done nothing to make me worried except wearing A.J. Hawk's old number. That makes me concerned. Yeah.
That's true. Yeah. It's cursed.
It is. McRae, the guy they signed from Denver, I think he's likely to make the team. And Fackrell is interesting, the draft choice. And he was the guy who was on a Mormon mission, right? So he's an older guy. He's like 25 years old already. He's somebody that looks good in the preseason, but he just, I don't know. I kind of get that Brady Papinga sense, and not just because of the Mormon mission thing. He looks like a solid guy, but not anybody who's going to, be a difference maker and a playmaker. He just doesn't strike me that way, but we'll see.
Well, Fackrell had played at the end of the game. He created a lot of pressure against their threes, and that's the problem is you don't know against better competition. But he was not just dancing around with his blocker, I thought he put a lot of pressure, flushed the quarterback out of the pocket a few times. I don't think he had a sack. He had 4 tackles, 3 solo, no sacks, but he definitely put pressure on the quarterback when he played. I bet you he makes the team to me, but whether he plays or not is completely different. I have 2 thoughts on linebackers in terms of actual playing time. Yeah. One is very first play of the game. It's a run to the right.
Clay Matthews.
And Clay Matthews drags him down from behind before he gets 2 steps out of grabbing the ball.
That was impressive.
And that made me think,
that was impressive.
Yes, it's one of those you don't block the linebacker on that side because he can't get there.
Wrong.
They're running to the right. He's on the left. Not with Clay Matthews. He's completely on him. And that's, I think, well, could the defense be better now that he's not just holding it together in the middle, he's actually a playmaker from the outside. And now Clay Matthews on the outside had his issues. You run at him. Sometimes he couldn't handle that. He always takes a wide route to the quarterback, so sometimes they can run in that
slot. Out of the play, yeah.
Yep, so it's not that he's perfect, but man, there have been times too when he plays on the end where he's absolutely dynamite, and that was a great play. Now on the other side, Peppers had a couple of bad plays.
He got sucked in on that. He did not set the edge. He collapsed in, and they ran right around him. He got sucked in there, and he couldn't recover.
Yeah, he's. They keep saying Peppers is sort of ageless, and the guys look up to him. Literally.
Oh, he's 6'7", right? So yeah.
Yeah. And he's huge, and I when he tries, I think he's certainly a significant player. But I wonder if I think Dayton Jones has been impressing me outside there too.
Yeah.
First round pick. He looks the part too. I mean,
and he can also play down. He can also be a down lineman too. So maybe that gives you some protection if you go with less guys on the roster as D linemen. He can kind of be a hybrid.
Yeah, Dayton's certainly going to make the team. The question is whether he should start, I think. Peppers, ever since, and Bear fans know this too, when he play, he some plays he's on and some plays he's off, right? And it feels like with the Packers, there's high expectations all the time. I think he's not going to just take plays off because it just feels like it, but it looks like he does. And I thought, from at least what I could tell, Dayton Jones seems a lot more assignment sure, has been around the ball quite a bit. I wonder if that's going to be something that we'll be talking about as the season goes along.
I also wonder about Nick Perry. He had a blocked pass in the San Francisco game. Is this finally the year that he plays like a number 1 draft choice? You just wonder about this guy. At times he seemed close to making a difference, and he'll get hurt. And I'm just wondering now that the field's a little more clear. There's no Mike Neal in his way anymore, and I think he's in a contract year too, right?
Did they sign him to? I thought he had this was a contract year. Did he just sign a 1-year deal? I don't remember.
I think I thought he was at the end of his rookie deal. No, maybe I got that wrong. But he's got to be. If he's not, he's got to be coming up on it. Keep waiting for him though to to play like he was drafted. And I guess
Yeah.
you could say that about Dayton Jones too, as far as that goes. Another number one. In fact,
Right.
if you look at it, Matthews was a first round. Perry, I think Peppers was a first round for Carolina, I think, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Dayton Jones was a number one. Who else do they have here? I guess all the rest were
Nowhere number ones.
lower.
Yeah.
Yeah, but still, you got 4 of those guys as your linebackers. My God, that's embarrassment of riches.
Well, say Dayton is a really good rusher of the passer on third. Say it's 3rd and 10, and you put in someone like Dayton Jones can rush, or say Fackrose really comes on alive. One is you could save Peppers toward the end of the game and say, hey, Julius, just hold it until we need you at the end. But would you ever put him next to Mike Daniels? If being at 6'7", say, look, Julius, just get a couple steps in and then jump, man. I mean, you should be able to knock a ton of balls down. I wonder if they would ever put him in the middle, but he's never really done that. Carolina, I think he stood rather than was like a down lineman. But, I mean, put him in the middle there. He's big. I don't think he get pushed around. He could knock a ton of balls down.
Yeah, that's what I think they might try to do, and that's why I'm not sure they keep 5 defensive linemen, because Peppers can play a little on the line, Jones can play a little bit on the line. I'm not sure you need Christian Ringo, for instance. You're probably going to go with Lowry because he's the more current draft choice. But I wonder if they won't go with 4 there so they can keep 11 defensive backs. That just kind of strikes me that way. Oh, also, yeah. Dave, I did check into it. Nick Perry signed a 1-year, $5 million deal. He's a free agent next year, but he's working on a 1-year contract. And his agent, by the way, Joe Panos. Remember Joe Panos from?
Oh yeah, from Wisconsin.
Yeah. That's Nick Perry's agent. So yeah, this is a contract year for him. He's playing on a 1-year, $5 million deal. So that brings us to the specialists, and there's only one head-to-head battle, and we touched on it a bit last week, the Tim Mastay v. Peter Mortel situation. The one thing I noticed this week, Crosby, who was in San Francisco, no doubt he was sky high.
Yeah.
He kind of yanks an extra point. It hits off the upright, clangs in, but the holder was Mortel.
Yeah.
And in a close, I think this is a pretty close battle. I'm wondering if that holding situation isn't going to be the deciding factor. Not that Mortel's a bad holder. I'm just wondering if Crosby doesn't have more comfort with Mastay, and there's not enough difference in the punting. It's not a decisive difference. If that's kind of the one grain of sand on the scale that tips it in Mastay's favor.
Yeah, it's too bad because Mortel, they referenced an article that was written. Dan Pompey wrote an article. Did you read it?
No, but I heard him reference it, and I know that he's from the Chicago Tribune. I think he was at least at one time.
Yeah,
he's a great writer. Yeah.
Yeah, he talked about Mortel still lives at his home in Green Bay where he grew up. So in his bedroom, and literally today, if he practiced, he woke up in his childhood bedroom, and they said on his wall is a poster of Clay Matthews.
Oh. He had the entire punter series, Yeah. He had Don Bracken. Yeah, is there? Don,
I can't even think of punters.
Yeah.
No, but Clay Matthews. I would think I would take that down. If I'm now trying to be on a team where that guy's on my team,
a little embarrassing, yeah.
A little bit, yeah. But he had like a pennant from the '96 Packers on his wall, and he gets up and drinks chocolate milk that his mom stocks in the fridge, and it's just such great stuff. But I think the holding part, I think you can establish a rapport on the holding. Maybe early in a few games, their rhythm is off. But if Mastay gets caught, and then I think, hey, guys, you 3 figure it out. I don't know, maybe you can even have, someone mentioned it's too bad that Huntley couldn't be your holder.
Yeah, right.
Because then that opens up a few options on fakes. That would be pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
But Mastay, I always thought this team is too good to take chances, that Mortel had to be not just 1.1 times better. He had to be 1.5 or 2 times better than Mastay to to unseat him. And I thought this game, Mortel had a couple of low punts. I guess I can pull up their averages. I thought he had one good one, and he seems to do really well within the 20, or when you want to drop one in. So Mortel had one. Mastay did two, but I thought his inside the 20s were like the 18-yard line, where Mortel comfortably bounced it on the 10. But Mortel had they each had 49 yards as the long. Their averages were about the same. And Mortel started. They had him punt first. I don't know if that means anything.
I'm not sure either. I guess what they've done in practice now is instead of alternating kicks, it's like one day is the Mortel day and the next day is the Mastay day. So it apparently is close, if you believe the reports that come out of camp, that Mastay's kicked better in camp. I think the Packers' decision is going to be this. Do you want a veteran who does not have a huge leg but has really good hang time and who's, proven and has the confidence of holding on these field goals for your place kicker? Or do you want a guy with what seems to be a little bit bigger leg, maybe has the potential for more upside, is better, seemingly better, at directional kicking and kicking inside the 20, and it's got kind of that, that hometown thing going too. What's the deal there? What's the differentiation? And my guess is they'll go with the veteran, but I think that's going to come right down to the end.
I wonder if they said to him, "Look, Pete, we're going to stay with Mastay, but as a Packer fan, we want you to just stay home and wait for the phone call in case something happens, and don't go anywhere else." If he would give him the hometown wait, obviously you probably wouldn't do that. But if he were around next year, I don't know what happens to punters across the league. If he is shown enough that someone else will grab him,
well, if somebody gets hurt, I'm sure every team has got that kind of that list. But maybe what the Packers could do is fire his old man and make him the clock guy to keep him in the organization, right? So
exactly.
So just in case he has to come out of the press box and kick if something happens to Mastay.
The thing is, Mastay has had a couple of really bad seasons last few seasons.
Last season and a half, I would say, have been bad. It was kind of the middle, I thought, of the 14 season. The wheels started to wobble, and then I expected him to just kind of get it out of his system and kick well last year, but he seemed shaky for a lot of last year too.
Yeah, I tell you, the punting does matter. I mean, I thought the punt that Mortel had in the first quarter was a low punt, got returned. What was it? It had a good return. So the 49ers started on the Green Bay 44. They get 127-yard run by Carlos Hyde, and they're right up against the goal line. So, punting, if they could have punted that thing and got them pinned back to the 30 or 25, let's say, because they had a good bounce or a better punt, then maybe that becomes a field goal, and the whole game changes. So punting matters. I know some people don't think so, but they can't take chances. But boy, I'd like to see. Actually, I don't know, Chris. I think you don't want to take chances with this team. On the other hand, I'd like the true person who punted the best in camp. I give him the job. So I don't know which one of those. I guess is it Ron Zook is their coach?
Right,
Hopefully he is will know best in this decision.
Well, yeah, I don't trust Ron Zook after watching him as a college coach, but I think the safe play is you go with the veteran, and I do agree with you that I think punting matters. I think the field goal and placement matters. I mean, those people are putting points directly on the board, and so I think that is critical. And if it makes Mason Crosby feel a little more comfortable to have Tim Mastay holding, and that is going to help his accuracy on putting points on the board, to me that's an important factor, and that's why I think you go with the veteran. So we've kind of run through the roster. It will be interesting to see. They do the first round of cuts this week. They got to cut down to 75, I believe, and then after the final preseason game, that's when they cut down to 53. This first round of cuts, I think, is going to be pretty easy. I don't think there'll be any real surprises unless they make their decision on the punter. Otherwise, I think it's pretty simple to get through the first round. It's going to be that second round of cuts that I think will be the most interesting, and we won't know that till after the Kansas City game.
Yep. Now, we talked about having a question of the week each week that people could email in, and we didn't get one this week, but I actually have one in my notes. And
I
wanted to.
I have a question. How can I give money to the podcast? Can you tell me how I can do that?
Yeah, that's a great question. You send your donation to, or how do we say? It's not really a donation.
It's a contribution.
It's a past due notice. No, it's just kidding. We really are asking for money a lot with the sponsors and everything. But it's packerstherapy@yahoo.com on PayPal. Or if you really want to just email me and just send cash, I'll give you my address. That's another way to go about it. But can I? That is actually, you want to talk about contribution of the week, and then we can do our question of the week.
Let's do that, Dave.
That's sponsored by packerstherapy@yahoo.com.
Exactly, it is. Yes.
All right. What is your contribution of the week?
I really want to thank Christian Ponder for his contribution of staring down his receiver long enough.
Waiting long enough for everyone to know it's coming.
Exactly. And then Evans was able to step right in there and make a pick. Now, I don't want to diminish Marwin Evans' interception. I mean, he did step in there and make the play, but Ponder was locked onto that receiver. And, there's a reason why Ponder was the third quarterback out of the gate, too. So it was a lovely contribution, and it also gave a notch for Evans in his battle to make the roster, making things a little bit more interesting. Even if he did stare his man down, it was very kind of Ponder to lay it up there and let Evans get the pick. So that's my choice for contribution of the week.
Yeah, mine is the contribution that Eddie Lacy gave to Hodges in a fistful of hair.
Fistful of hair.
That was pulled down by his dreadlocks. And now I guess the reports are out that he may trim his hair back a bit. So
I heard
it's not
that.
So easy.
He hasn't got a haircut in a year, is what I read.
Yeah. That is. I'd pull. If that's easy to grab, and you're not running through a block, through a tackle, then someone's got your hair. You're going down. I bet you that hurts like you wouldn't believe. They had when you kind of look up that topic, the one that keeps coming up is Chris Ivory for the Jets. Had hair that was even longer than Lacy. He had even more sort of dreadlocks out there. And this guy came up behind, and why not? As soon as he grabbed his hair, he went right down. I mean, there's no forward progress when you're being yanked from behind like that. I think that's an advantage you give to someone else. I think you cut your hair, right?
Well, unless you like it. I mean, maybe Eddie, he likes that hair pulling kind of thing.
Look, I don't care what he likes. His job is to get extra yards, and the hair is a detriment to that. So he's got to cut his. So his contribution is to give it to his barber and have do the route of A.J. Hawk and get a buzz cut.
Now that would be an interesting look after him having that long hair to come back, clean, shaved.
Probably lose 5 pounds.
Probably. He'd be able to make weight. Now,
yeah.
Maybe that's what he's waiting for.
Yeah.
When they start the weekly weigh-ins that, he'll, when he's, been, kind of hitting the nachos a little bit hard, he'll pull out his secret weapon, and that's to cut the hair off.
Yeah. Well, you know what? That can't be light. Anyway. Well, so that's contribution of the week. Question of the week for me is the idea. This whole thing on touchbacks. I've been watching. Every time they kick into the end zone now, and they go to the 25-yard line, that's a pretty significant advantage to start, as opposed to if you catch it at the 0-yard line, start running. It's a pretty good return to get to the 25, and potentially, you can get further than that. But I was wondering, do you think that teams? I thought now this game I finally started to see where I thought the kicker was intentionally trying to land it on about the 5 to just shortly in the end zone, because before that I think they were just kick it out of there and let's line up. Do you think they're going to start to kick shorter now, or do you think that teams who receive will intentionally let it go because 25 yards not that bad? Why would you even return it if it's a high kick in particular? And start the 15. Why wouldn't you just let that thing go?
Well, I think this is a preseason only thing, though, right?
Oh, is it?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
oh.
I think they're trying it out in the same way they tried out the longer extra point, and I think this is just to kind of get a feel whether or not they want to go this way. I think they probably will, but
I think so too.
But the unintended consequence is going to be, like you say, the pop-up kick, trying to get it down inside the 5 or even inside the 10, but then you're still going to have the collisions,
Yeah.
So I'm not sure. I guess I'm still liking this idea of taking away the penalty for kicking it out of bounds. I mean, if they really want to try to eliminate this whole collisions, high-speed collisions, and the injuries that occur on kickoffs, what about getting rid of that penalty? Because I think you get on the 40-yard line, right? If you kick it out of bounds.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
What?
So if you get rid of that, then teams will be trying to angle it down to the to the 5 or the 10, and that way you won't have to worry about any collisions because people will be kicking it out of bounds, and there won't be a penalty for it.
So go out of bounds at the 5. You get the ball on the 5, or do you get it on the 20?
I would say that you could get it on the wherever you kick it out of bounds.
Okay. Well, then there'd be a lot of
because that would be the incentive to try to kick it there, right?
Well, the other thing is if you kick it in the corner and it goes out of bounds, the only penalty is it goes to the 20. You still might go for it because pinning them in there might be allow you to sort of trap and
right.
Get it short of the 20.
Yeah.
To get it, if you kicked it out, one is if you did the kickoffs, so no one would ever there'd be no reason to have a returner back there. They'll always kick it out of bounds.
Well,
I would think.
Yeah, but it's the accuracy question. If they try to do that, if they kick it out of bounds at the 23 or the 28, it's not. I don't think it's easy. To angle it that way.
But that's a high reward, low risk. I'd say if you kick, if it bounces and it goes out the 1, that's great. But if it goes to the end zone and you miss, well, you get it on the 20. So it's like the risk reward isn't fair there. That would change the game significantly. I would think you could say if you kick it out of bounds, you get it on the 25 and reduce the penalty. You might encourage that behavior. But you're trying to eliminate the collisions altogether. Then why don't you just have them start in the 20?
Well, but that's it though. See, my deal is I don't want to eliminate the kickoff because I think the kickoff is an important part of the game and has been historically. I want to make it though so that there is more strategy involved, that you are discouraging the hits but keeping the kickoff in the game. So maybe the penalty, instead of coming out to the 40, is it comes out to the 20. I mean, there's a variety of ways that you can keep it a part of the game, make it more strategic, make it that people would want to try this. Because right now what it is, all they're going to do is kick it short. You're still going to have the collisions that they're concerned about.
You have more.
Yeah,
more collisions.
Right. And so what I want to do is I want to keep the kickoff in the game, but at the same time try to eliminate what apparently is a highly physically risky play in the game. These kickoffs. Yeah.
If you want to avoid collisions, you don't change anything because teams just blast it out of the end zone and no one cuts anything. So I think if they want to keep that exciting part in the game be meaningful, I think that 25-yard is a good idea because I thought in this game they started to kind of kick it high and short.
Right. They did. Yep.
And a lot of teams are going to start in the 15 as a result of that. So you're going to have longer to go. I was talking to somebody today talking about the collisions, and they got in a car accident and they had a concussion, and they were talking about how difficult it was to manage through the concussion they had from this car accident. And I was thinking about how we dismiss concussions so quickly when we say, it's just a concussion, or we hope they can play next week, get them back. At least I do. I feel like get the protocol going. But man, I felt real guilty when I heard of this other person who had a concussion after a car accident kind of talk about how difficult it was to deal with. And then you see the later effects in life. I don't know. I think if you really want to avoid that, if that's your concern, then you got to give up something and just have them start on the 20 or 25 and don't do kickoffs anymore.
Yeah, I just don't like that notion of doing away with that because it is such a rich part of the game. It is so traditional. I just would like to keep it there, but change it in such a way that you minimize some of those risks. And maybe I need to kind of think this through a little more thoroughly. But if it was a deal where it took some skill, you had to kind of wedge it into that area, I would be interested to know how the receiving team, would respond to that. Would they maybe they
Put
would
people in the corner?
Exactly,
Yeah.
and that would leave the middle of the field open. And so, there's,
Yeah.
it opens up a lot more interesting elements of the game, in my opinion.
It would change the game, I think, a lot.
Yes.
I think it would change it a lot. And I think kickers would be in high demand that could do that really well.
Yeah, exactly. So you'd have to be able to not only kick you through the uprights, but you'd have to really be good at the kickoff part of the game. I mean, it's a different kind of skill, and may mean higher salaries for those guys too. But after all, kicking is a part of the game, and I think this is another element that could make it more interesting.
Well, I think your idea is a bad one.
Okay,
Great. I'd like to leave it at that.
Sure.
All right.
I'm fine with that.
That's good. You have a healthy self-esteem. You can be criticized, and you don't take it too hard.
I'll cry myself to sleep tonight, but that's that's typical. So it's not really anything out of the ordinary. Yeah, exactly.
Pile it on.
Exactly.
Yeah. Another thing to cry about.
Right.
That's nice. Pop culture.
Oh yeah, pop culture.
I will do mine first. If you have anything else to say about the game.
No, I think we've pretty much beaten a preseason game to death. I mean, this was a more interesting game because Rodgers played, but it's still preseason, and it's so tough to make judgments about the team. We were talking before about comparisons. The Raiders apparently their starting quarterback had a 133 passer rating, but the Packers held him down the week before. I don't know that you can make week-to-week judgments. It's hard enough in the regular season, but in the preseason, I'm not exactly sure, what it is we learn. Maybe individual performances mean something, but it seems every year we do this, and this is the 12th year now we've done it. We make these judgments about what we see in August, and so few of them carry into September, let alone October, November, or December. It's nice to have Packers football back, but I'm not really sure what we're really getting out of this. And transparent to us, Dave, are the whole practice things. I mean, we read stuff in the paper about how so-and-so did and this and that. But, coaches are evaluating as much on what they see in those practice sessions, which we don't see, as they are on what we do see in the games themselves.
Yeah. Although, having said all that, Derek Carr's passer rating against Tennessee this last weekend, 133.8. Pretty good. 2 touchdowns, 170 yards, 12 for 18. His quarterback rating against the Packers was 40.2.
So what you're saying is that, therefore, Packers defense are prime.
Awesome.
I had set the over-under at 130 for Carr, so he actually went the over. I don't know how many people took that, but yeah, that's what I set it at.
Well, I think the idea in that there are a lot of scouts at games, they always talk about that. The Packers are so deep, and there's all these scouts there. That might actually be true at every game. But it does feel that this is a deep team, and I'm excited for the season.
I'm excited for the season without the preseason.
Oh, well, okay. There you go. I'm excited. I think they're going to win. You have you want to throw out a prediction, or are you going to do that next week?
I'll throw out a prediction for what?
How many wins?
Oh, no, that's next week. Dave,
right.
Dave, be patient. We have to get through that important 4th preseason game before we can start throwing out predictions on wins. Come on.
Fair enough. So pop culture for me,
Yep.
TV show. I'm 3 episodes into a show that a lot of people are talking about on Netflix is Stranger Things.
Yes.
And I was described to me as kind of like it's definitely an 80s influence from the background music to the font on the opening credits. I think even like the beginning credits, the film looks like it's old and it's like pockmarked with like little things of light, like it's old film. The clothes, the music that they play is all 80s, which I love. And I thought it was going to be a lot like E.T. or Goonies, the stuff that I grew up with. But it's actually probably more like Poltergeist, kind of a combination of a scarier E.T. and a Poltergeist. And I'm watching it with my 14-year-old daughter. It's PG fare, it's PG-13 kind of stuff, so it's not super scary. There are 8 episodes in total, and I'm really enjoying it. We both, usually when I watch a TV show, I watch one episode and like, all right, it's time to go to bed. Last night we watched 2 back-to-back, and because it's very, very good. So if you've not heard of Stranger Things, Netflix, or watched it yet, I highly recommend that.
Senior Chief Tom recommended that to us on Twitter.
Yes.
And so I'm glad you're giving that a shot. The comparison to Poltergeist makes it somewhat interesting to me. The E.T. part of it, I wouldn't probably go that way. I didn't think that was a great movie. I know a lot of people would disagree. I'm trotting on their childhood memories, but that one didn't work for me. But Poltergeist did, and so that does make it more intriguing to me. So.
Much more like that than E.T.
Okay,
Much
good,
more.
good. Well, that in fact is very good to know. I want to take a chance here because I know there are so many people who listen to this podcast. It's vast. I want to take a shot at WGN America. I'm going to blast these people because last year I talked about my appreciation for the show Manhattan, which ran 2 seasons on WGN America. Well, during the time that we were dark on Packers Therapy, during the late winter and early spring, they took it upon themselves to cancel Manhattan from WGN America. This is a travesty. We cannot have this kind of behavior. We needed a 3rd season of this program, Manhattan on WGN America. I think I recommended it last year. Now that it's not coming back, there will be no more Manhattan. If you haven't seen it, there's 2 seasons of it. Terrific program. I recommend that you watch those 2 seasons. I think there's like 23 episodes or something like that. Seek it out, find it, and try that out. Something that's on right now and has been. I think I also recommended this in the past, but now that it's back, I just want to bump it again. Halt and Catch Fire. Now, the first season of Halt and Catch Fire, I liked. It was okay. A lot of the critics weren't so high on it. In fact, there was talk about it, not getting a 2nd season. Well, it turned out that A&E gave it a 2nd season, and it was tremendous. Viewers liked it. Critics liked it. The audience was small. And despite that, the 2nd season was so good, they brought it back for a 3rd season. It just started last week on A&E. If you haven't seen the first 2 seasons, it's out there and available. I recommend watching it and then picking up the 3rd season, which I understand the early reviews of that are pretty good, that it's picking up where the excellent 2nd season left off. So I have not seen, I think there might be even 2 episodes in the new season so far. So if you haven't seen that, I do strongly recommend Halt and Catch Fire on A&E.
Yeah, and those who listen, I know that we have quite a few listeners at this point. If you have shows that you really like, just send us an email and tell us. I like that as much as the Packer comments because there's so much good TV, it's hard to keep track of. And Dr. Klaus had mentioned some that are non-U.S. based, and I've been watching a few independent movies this summer because all the blockbuster ones have been terrible.
He mentioned one called Sabura, I believe it is.
Mm-hmm. That was what did he say? That was.
He said it was kind of a political.
Oh, it's Italian.
It's Italian with English subtitles. It's a political thriller / mafia movie, which Dr. Klaus says it's not his favorite genre, the mafia movie. But he sent us a link to a trailer for the series Sabura, and it was terrific. I mean, I am looking forward to watching that. Klaus, thank you so much for that recommendation. The other one, what was that one called? That was more of a lighter show.
I think it was Nerve. I think it was a movie, though.
Was that a movie and not a show?
I thought so,
okay.
But I have to look it up. But yeah, I mean, whether it's U.S. based or not, if it's easy to find on Netflix or not, good shows are good shows. Recommend away. I'd love to hear as much as from books to movies to TV, whatever. Please send them our way.
Yeah, and you can do that by writing to us at packerstherapy@yahoo.com. And incidentally, that's also the same address to pay us at PayPal. So that's good, too. We did get some email and some tweets this week, and I want to comment on a few things. Heard from our friend Harold in Norway, letter carrier, the mailman. In fact, maybe that should be his nickname, the mailman. He is the official letter carrier of Packers Therapy, and Harold checking in this week from Norway. We appreciate that. Listening to the show for a very long time now, so glad you checked in with us. And we also got a very thoughtful email. I think this was also from Senior Chief Tom, who is going to be out at sea again soon, and he won't be corresponding. But we raised, toward the end of the last podcast, Dave, we raised the question of cults, and our Packer fans, a cult. And I think we raised this in reference to my suggestion for watching The Path on Hulu, which first season's now complete. And so do we, are Packer fans a cult? And so this is what Senior Chief Tom had to say. There are certainly cult-like habits that we Packer fans have, especially with our manner of dress and forms of ritual. In our home, every Packers game is accompanied by copious amounts of Wisconsin-made beer, bratwurst, and hot wings. We do a shot of whiskey after each touchdown. We make long-range plans based on certain matchups. When I hear that someone else at work is a cheesehead, I seek them out. So yes, I would say we have a cultish aspect to our behavior. That being said, I don't depend on the cult to validate who I am. I am this obsessed with other teams I root for as well. That brings me to another question you had about whether other teams feel the same way. Another team I follow closely is the Seattle Sounders football club of the MLS. I came to that team in my mid-20s, as opposed to the Pack, for whom I was born a fan. I have seen the fervor and passion of those fans as well. Some of those fans travel incredible distances to follow the club, some as far away as Central America. They also have podcasts, forums, odd behavior, and game time rituals of a similar spirit, though radically different in execution. I think that regardless of the team or sport, there's always a core or hardcore group of fans that could be considered a cult following. Perhaps it is just in our nature to want to be part of something bigger than ourselves. And I thought that was an extremely thoughtful and good take. And I do appreciate that email that came in exploring the question that we had raised. So that was our guy, Senior Chief Tom, checking in from Japan, I believe is where he is right now, and soon to be out at sea defending the waters for the United States.
The land of negative interest rates, Japan.
That's true, and I think that's the way the United States is heading. But that will be on our finance and economic podcast that Dave and I will be providing also a chance there, except the numbers that you have to give on PayPal, much higher on our business, economic, and finance podcast. So
right. We'll invest it wisely, and
exactly.
we'll make multiples on that over time. But yeah, that's right.
All right.
We have a higher threshold.
Thanks to everybody who was in touch with us this week, whether or not you gave through PayPal or just sent us a line or hit us on Twitter. All the ways around, we really do appreciate that. So thank you so much for your support of the podcast in whatever way you do it, whether it may be just downloading and listening to the podcast. We are grateful for that as well. Our Twitter address is @PackersTherapy. You can get us there. We would appreciate hearing from you. We gave you the email address, packersTherapy@yahoo.com. Dave, do you have any final thoughts before we wrap this one up and on to the KC game?
Way too long. We're in mid-season form with hour and a half podcast, so I got nothing.
That long already? Oh man.
Oh
well.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, that's going to wrap Packers Therapy for this week. The Packers will wrap up their preseason with a game against Kansas City. We're going to be back. We're going to talk about that one. We'll talk about the final roster, and we'll talk about our predictions for the 2016 season. We'll do all that the next time that we are together. And until that time, I'm Chris.
I'm Dave.
And that's Packers Therapy. I'm Chris.
And I'm Dave.
And that's Packers Therapy.